Three, two, one. Yo, what did you do? It's your boy Nissy coming back with another bullseye with tutorial here today on the channel. I wanted to talk about the CL1B. It seems like in these mixing streets out here, the CL1B is a compressor that has a lot of clout, that a lot of people love to use. So let's see why. Why is that the case? You know, what makes something like a CL1B a little bit distinguishing from all the other different types of compressors, when to use it, why to use it. Let's not waste no time. Let's get on the grind and let's see what gems we can find. I'm going to play the song that we have here and we're going to see, you know, why the CL1B is great and a couple of different alternatives that, you know, you guys can try out because the CL1B is very, very expensive. Oh my God, it's taxing, but let's work this out. Let's go.
Put a 3-5 in the wood. Might take a perky or two. Bet don't be worried about me, I'm good. I'm getting that bread as I should. I'ma just follow my dreams, yeah. Every week I'm in the stool. I know they ain't believe in me, but I'ma show them with the truth. Put a 3-5 in the wood. Might take a perky or two. Bet don't be worried about me, I'm good. I'm getting that bread as I should. I'ma just follow my dreams.
Okay, so let's go ahead and first start to understand a little bit about the history of something like the CL1B. So the CL1B is an optical compressor. It's actually related to something like an LA2A and LA3A. And when a CL1B is doing compression, even though it's called a tube tech, it doesn't use tubes to do the compression. It uses something called an optical component. So an optical component is something that gets brighter as a way of, resisting. You know, it's kind of like a bodyguard. It's a security guard. As that vocal or that signal is coming through, it says, hey, little nigga, back up, little nigga. It starts to push back and it starts to get bigger and brighter. And it serves as that, you know, that push back up against the signal that you put it in. So what drives the signal to try to walk into the club, you know what I mean, to face that bodyguard is usually something like a transformer. So in the LA3A, it uses the transformers to drive the signal into the optical cell. As the optical cell starts to get bigger and brighter, it starts to do more compression. In something like a LA2A, it's usually the tubes. The tubes are starting to drive that, you know, signal on the input and the output to hit the optical circuit. So, you know, here in the LA3A, you see this right here. These are the optical components that get brighter. Usually it's like a T3, a T4 optical cell. So those are the optical cells. And, you know, sometimes people even go in there and they modify their shit and, you know, it sounds different, you know. So let's look at something like the CL1B. The reason why the CL1B was very groundbreaking, though, is because, you know, something like a LA2A, it started to become hard to get, you know, the parts, you know, such as like maybe you have an old throwback donk, you got a donk sitting outside, or you got an old school whip that's sitting on, you know, them Forgiatos or what it is, them big body rims or whatever, you feel me? And now it's starting to get hard to get a replacement for the door, a replacement for the window, a replacement for the muffler. So that's what happened to the LA2A. You know, the LA2A came out in 1960. And bitches started being like, damn, bro, my LA2A broke down and I can't even get the parts to fix it. So what happened was somebody, you know, the guy who made Tube Tech, the company, he went ahead and started to try to solve that problem. You feel me? So he made the CL1B. So the CL1B is kind of like a descendant of the LA2A, but it's a little bit better because it has a little bit more control, such as the attack, the release, and the ratio. So those things specifically are not included on the LA2A or LA3A. The thing about LA2A and LA3A, the ratio, you know, kind of changes as well too. You know what I mean? You know, it has a fixed attack and release as, you know, it's kind of reacting to the signal. You know what I mean? So that's the nature of those compressors. As the compression gets heavier, it starts to become a little bit more abrupt, a little bit more denser and everything like that, you know. So that's the good thing about the CL1B, you get to change the ratio. Okay, so let's go back into Pro Tools. So in Pro Tools, I want to show you guys a couple of different alternatives. I love using the CL1B. Most of the time I use it as a saturator. I do not even use it to actually do the compression. I'll probably use it on parallel or on my lead vocal and just let that bitch walk right in through it. You know, I just let it walk right through the store. You feel me? I just let it, you know, just kind of lollygag and just, you know, kind of pass through it. And in itself, like it just running through those tubes gives it a really rich, creamy, Haagen-Dazs ice cream type of taste. So let's look at that.
Put a 3-5 in the wood. Might take a perky or two. Babe, don't be worried about me, I'm good. I'm getting that bread as I should. I'ma just follow my dreams, yeah. Every week I'm in the stool. I know they ain't believe in me, but I'ma show them with the truth. Put a 3-5 in the wood. Might take a perky or two. Babe, don't be worried about me.
So you see, just running through the CL1B gives this nice tasty creaminess to the vocal. So sometimes maybe if you want your vocal to be a little bit brighter, you don't even gotta use a boosting EQ. You can just run it through a CL1B, which is the way I preferably use it, because I kind of don't like what it sounds like compressing. So I usually use these alternatives. Okay, one great alternative I love to use is something like the PSP Old Timer. What makes a CL1B stand out? What makes it stand out is the included features, you know, that the 2A and the 3A don't have, which is the attack, the release, and also the sidechain filter as well, the ratio, you know what I mean? You also get to change, you know, how it reacts if you want a fixed or manual. So that's something. And after that, we have the PSP Old Timer, all right? So let's look at how this one sounds compared to CL1B.
Put a 3-5 in the wood. Might take a perky or two. Babe, don't be worried about me, I'm good. I'm getting that bread as I should. I'ma just follow my dreams, yeah. Every week I'm in the stool. I know they ain't believe in me, but I'ma show them with the truth. Put a 3-5 in the wood. Might take a perky or two. Babe, don't be worried about me, I'm good. I'm getting that bread as I should. I'ma just follow my dreams, yeah. Every week I'm in the stool. I know they ain't believe in me, but I'ma show them with the truth.
I kind of actually prefer how the PSP Old Timer handles the mid-range. So that's something that you should also be paying attention to, because just the way the nature of something like an optical compressor it will be, you got to pay attention to the flow of the rapper. This is a great song because the rappers put if you dive in the wood, breaking it too. So whenever you're setting your compressor, listen to the flow of the rapper. Is the rapper going to, is he rapping fast? Trap. I'm in the bender with ready to racks. You might want to use something that's a little bit faster, or maybe use the CL1B with the fastest settings. You know what I mean? Don't use a CL1B just because you heard the next man up the road using the shit. Use it because it sounds appropriate, because the music is telling you it sounds good. So the PSP Old Timer might have a couple of advantages over the CL1B. And you get to pick between the clear and the valve. And for me, that's kind of like, do you want to have that tube saturation or not? Or you just want it to be clean? So you can kind of get still the same bumping and grooving and rocking sound without kind of like that, you know, that tube. Maybe you don't want the sound of the tube, you just want the way the compression is moving. And this is a great plugin for beginners too, because it gives you less ways of fucking it up. You know, you get to pick your ratio, of course, but then after that, the time, like this picks your attack and your release for you. So if you don't understand attack and release, well, go ahead and you just play around with this a little bit and get it to sound good. Me personally, knowing a CL1B is slow as hell, I kind of keep it on the fast side, you feel me? Especially because I'm using it on parallel. I like to use it on parallel a lot, you know what I mean? And then the compression, if you want more compression, like it's pretty easy. So that's the good thing about being an engineer. If you don't know shit, okay, make it easier for yourself. Kind of like a baby. You know, when you think about baby food, what is it? Gerber. You feel me? The food is already mashed up. It makes it really easy for the baby to be like, okay, I want that, blah, 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 put it in its mouth. You got to make it easier for yourself when you're mixing, because you got a lot of shit to worry about. So don't pick no crazy ass plugin with 100 million settings. Sometimes you might want to pick something simple. Okay, time. Okay, that sounds good. That sounds good. Boom, and you move on. Another great CL1B alternative is the auto-tune vocal compressor. I've been preferring this one over the CL1B a lot lately. Okay, so this one is amazing. You get a couple more features, right? You get to adjust the knee, and of course we know the knee. I've been talking about the knee since, you know, forever. And the knee, of course, is the transition of the compression, you know, so you can make the CL1B a little bit more jaggy with a little bit more edge, a little bit more blade to it. You know, you can get a different sound out of this one. And then also you get to have a little side chain. That this side chain goes up high as fuck. This side chain goes all the way up to 5K. So it does not stare at the booty. It does not stare at the low end of the vocal. It's just literally like, yo, I'm only looking at the mid range, and that's gonna make the compression actually be a lot more cleaner. So let's look at that.
Put a 3-5 in the wood. Might take a perky or two. Babe, don't be worried about me, I'm good. I'm getting that bread as I should. I'ma just follow my dreams, yeah. Every week I'm in the stool. I know they ain't believing me, but I'ma show them we the truth. Put a 3-5 in the wood. Might take a perky or two. Babe, don't be worried about me, I'm good. I'm getting that bread as I should. I'ma just follow my dreams, yeah. Every week I'm in the stool. I know they ain't believing me, but I'ma show them we the truth. Geeking all night out the boot. My girl telling me it ain't cute. But she know I'm gon' do what I do. Said I changed, but a lot of it ain't true. I got a monkey on my back. I got a baddie on my lap. I got a perky in my pocket. When she ain't looking, I'ma pop. She gon' love me as I am. Co-regardless, I'm the man. I just hope she understands. I'm on a mission to the bands. I ain't always gon' have time for you, but you know I'm the one for you. You got me feeling like them Perkins do. This the last one, girl, I promise you.
So as you can kind of hear, that auto-tune vocal compressor kind of sounds close. It kind of sounds close. If it ain't the bomb, it's in the blast radius. If it ain't the full brother, I feel like it's a half brother. You know, at the very least, I feel like that auto-tune vocal compressor is really, really close to the CL1B. And I don't think this is too expensive. I can't remember how much I got it for, but the CL1B is pretty expensive. So we just looking at a bunch of alternatives right now. You feel me? For people who maybe want to get their own style. Maybe you don't want to use the same plugin that everybody and their mama and their cousin and their grandma and their auntie and them is using. Maybe you might want to get your own swag, which is why I'm doing this video. I'm showing you some alternatives, you know, and I'm showing you an alternative way I like to use the CL1B, which is on parallel. Okay, cool. So last plugin I wanted to give a mention to, which I ain't gonna lie, for me, this shit sounds exactly like a CL1B, is the Rvox. And I don't know what it is, but the Rvox has this really, really, really nice, tight, bright way of being present. So that's something important to know about a CL1B too. Just the nature of the tubes, right? The way it kind of adds a little bit of brightness to the top, but also how it handles that mid-range, gives it presence, makes the vocal feel a little bit more sturdy, kind of is like a pin, you feel me? Like it takes the vocal pretty much, right? It puts it like one of those thumbtacks and it puts it up against the wall. So it sticks, it just sticks to the beat, you know what I mean? When you want to take a little sticky note, you put a little pin, boom, you stick it onto the wall and it holds there, holds it in place. And that's for me what a Rvox does. And that's also why I like to use the CL1B as a saturator, because the way tube compression works, it really just helps make things really dense and heavy and just sit your little ass right there, kid. You feel me? So let's look at the Rvox as well. Listen to how it brings a lot of great presence energy.
Put a 3-5 in the wood. Might take a perky or two. Babe, don't be worried about me, I'm good. I'm getting that bread as I should. I'ma just follow my dreams, yeah. Every week I'm in the stool. I know they ain't believing me, but I'ma show them we the truth. Put a 3-5 in the wood. Might take a perky or two. Babe, don't be worried about me, I'm good. I'm getting that bread as I should. I'ma just follow my dreams, yeah. Every week I'm in the stool. I know they ain't believing me, but I'ma show them we the truth. Geeking all night out the boot. My girl.
That's another great way of using compression, kind of like a hammer, essentially, you know. If you want to make two pieces of wood stick together, you got to use that hammer. You got to bang it in with that nail to hold it. And because I want my vocal to stick to the beat, you know, in a nice musical way, I'd use something like compression. So compression is not all about taming peaks. So this is pretty much the end of the video that I have here today. I showed a bunch of alternatives, the Rvox, the old timer, the auto-tune vocal compressor, which are all affordable and are great alternatives to the CL1B. So I just want to say thank you so much for being a great part of my YouTube family. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Appreciate you now, YouTube. Peace.